Clark praises Fever for being super resilient in their hard-fought overtime win over Dream. After the Indiana Fever's fourth straight win, Caitlin Clark said Coach Stephanie White made a great point in her post-game talk with the team by saying, "This felt like a playoff game. If so, the Fever looked playoff ready in their 95-91 overtime win over the Atlanta Dream on Sunday. The Fever showed impressive depth with her players scoring 18 or more points. Perhaps of more importance, Indiana responded to a major challenge from an Atlanta team that began the day one half behind the Fever for the important fourth-place spot in the playoff standings. The top four teams receive home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Coming into each night, we know how important that win is to hopefully get home court advantage in the playoffs." Clark said. Atlanta led 72-64 entering the fourth quarter. Indiana held the Dream to 9 points in the final period of regulation. Despite giving the Fever an overall grade of only B- for the game, Clark had praise for her team. "Just proud of our group," Clark said. "Super resilient." Obviously, this was a big one. Clark scored 26 points with 9 assists, after scoring only 5 points in the first half. Kelsey Mitchell had an important layup late in overtime to finish with 20 points. It was Mitchell's 19 consecutive games scoring at least 20. Kelsey struggled from the floor in the first half, and she found it in the second half, White said. "I think that's part of her growth, which is knowing to stay with it. That is going to come." White said Clark and Mitchell were both terrific and said Clark was effective in creating scoring opportunities for her teammates. "The way that she's getting us into offense, the way she's using the floor to give her teammates shots, she's allowing the game to flow, and she's doing a great job of finding her teammates in that." White said, "The way she does that, it opens things up for her." Michaela Timpson delivered Indiana's first 3 field goals of overtime to score a career-high 20 points. Aaliyah Boston added 18 points with 14 rebounds. Clark said Atlanta, which had 32 points from Alicia Gray and 15 points with 14 rebounds from Angel Reese, is a team that will be scary in the playoffs. They're great at what they do. They have a lot of different weapons. The Dream also had to support a sellout crowd of 17,044 at State Farm Arena, the home of the NBA's Atlanta Hawks, and also the usual site of Dream games when Clark and the Fever are in town. "For us, these are the games you get up for. That's what's fun about competition," Clark said. "You know, you want to play the best. It brings out the best in you. Obviously, that's been a challenge, and we're really good at that." Caitlin Clark is erasing one of the biggest critiques of her game. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark continues to improve in virtually every aspect. Caitlin Clark continues to erase any arguments against her, as she has improved her game in many facets this season, and is playing the best basketball of her career. However, much of the focus has gone to her overwhelming offense, and Clark has certainly made strides on that end. She has fine-tuned her mid-range game, punished offenses by relentlessly attacking the rim, is at her most efficient as a shooter from every area of the floor, and has mastered how to balance looking for her shot with using her brilliant playmaking prowess to set up others. But one aspect that had been singled out as a weakness earlier this year was her defense. Clark has stepped up on that end of the court as well of late, which is something her coach highlighted after the Indiana Fever's overtime win over the Atlanta Dream Sunday. So see, what the that defense was outstanding. Outstanding. Stephanie White said in a locker room video posted after the game. Her words were greeted with a big smile, indicating Clark appreciated that specific praise. Coach White deserves some credit for shifting the Fever into a zone in the fourth quarter, and Indiana held Atlanta to just 9 points in that frame. But Clark indeed did come up clutch on several key plays defensively. Twice she found herself one-on-one with Dream star Alicia Gray in big spots. And this was in a game where Gray had already registered her career high with 32 points. On one play, Clark was able to move her feet to stay in front. Gray pushed off with her arm, and Clark drew the offensive foul. On another, with the game tied and less than a minute remaining in regulation, Clark shadowed Gray and forced her into a difficult mid-range pull-up that missed. These sequences may not make the highlight reels, especially considering Clark scored 26 points and dished out 9 assists herself, but they were enough to be pointed out in front of her teammates. Rightfully so. Clark will never be known as a defensive stalwart, but she is no liability on that end either. And given how prodigious her production is on the other end, the strides she's made on defense have removed basically all ammunition for critics. There's always room for any player to keep getting better and shore up any perceived weaknesses. With Clark, however, any pushback on her performances requires some severe goalpost moving. Caitlin Clark's reaction after Angel Reese missed layup is destined to be a meme. The Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played in one epic matchup on Sunday, with Caitlin Clark's squad emerging with 95-91 victory in overtime. Despite some misses at the end of regulation, Angel Reese finished with 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 dimes. With the game tied at 81 and under 14 seconds to play, the Dream had a shot at the win. Reese grabbed an offensive board under the basket and attempted a putback that just missed. Another Dream shot missed, and the game headed to overtime. Reese put her hands up to her head, seemingly in disbelief. And behind her, as cameras captured, you can see Clark walk by with a smile. That's destined to become a meme. Caitlin Clark's stats versus Dream. Clark finished with 26 points, 9 assists, 3 rebounds, and 5 turnovers. She shot 9 of 20 from the floor. When is the next Indiana Fever game? It's on Tuesday, August 18th on the road against the Toronto Tempo at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Stephanie White delivers NSFW Caitlin Clark message after Fever's overtime win. Caitlin Clark's offense has made her one of the most recognizable players in basketball. Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White, however, wanted to celebrate something entirely different after Sunday's dramatic win over the Atlanta Dream. Clark finished with 26 points, 9 assists, and 3 rebounds, while playing nearly 41 minutes in Indiana's 95-91 overtime victory at State Farm Arena. She carried the Fever through a difficult third quarter, scoring 12 points on 5 of 8 shooting as the rest of Indiana's offense struggled to produce. But when White addressed the team inside the locker room, she immediately recognized Clark for her work on the opposite end of the floor. To see what the expletive, White said, "That defense was outstanding." Clark smiled as White delivered the enthusiastic message. For a player best known for deep three-pointers, creative passing, and high-scoring performances, the defensive praise represented a significant development. Caitlin Clark answers important challenge. Clark did not record a steal or block against Atlanta, but those numbers did not tell the full story. One of her most important defensive possessions came with less than a minute remaining in regulation. With the score tied at 81, Alicia Gray attempted to create a potential go-ahead basket against Clark. Clark stayed in front of Gray and contested a difficult turnaround jumper, which missed. Indiana survived the possession, forced overtime, and eventually escaped with its 4th consecutive victory. White's reaction showed how much the play and Clark's overall defensive effort meant to the Fever. "I could not be more proud," White told her players during the locker room celebration shared by the Fever. "That was a big one for us." Indiana needed every part of Clark's performance. Her third quarter scoring prevented Atlanta from taking control, while her playmaking continued to create opportunities for her teammates. When the game demanded a defensive stop, she answered that challenge as well. Fever show encouraging growth before playoffs. Defense has remained a major concern for Indiana throughout the season. The Fever rank 11th in defensive rating, according to Basketball Reference, giving them the worst mark among the WNBA's current top 8 teams. That weakness could become even more damaging during the postseason, when opponents have more time to identify and attack favorable matchups. Clark's effort against Gray offered an encouraging sign. Indiana does not need its star guard to become an elite individual defender overnight, but it does need consistent effort and disciplined possessions from everyone on the floor. The victory also gave the Fever a 2-2 split in their regular season series with Atlanta. A 5th meeting would have to occur in the playoffs, and 4 close games between the teams suggest that would be a compelling matchup. Clark will receive most of the attention for another 26-point performance. White made sure her star understood that the Fever valued the work that did not appear in the box score just as much. Caitlin Clark smiles after Angel Reese misses late layup. What happened in Fever Dream game? Indiana survives overtime after Reese's late miss keeps Atlanta from winning in regulation. Caitlin Clark appeared to smile moments after Angel Reese missed a potential game-winning layup Sunday, August 16th, as the Indiana Fever escaped the Atlanta Dream with a 95-91 overtime victory. The moment came with the score tied 81-81 at the end of regulation at Atlanta State Farm Arena. Reese collected an air ball from Ryan Howard and attempted to put back near the basket with roughly 3 seconds remaining, but the shot missed. Naz Hillman then tried to follow up before the buzzer sounded. As Reese reacted to the missed opportunity, ESPN's cameras captured Clark smiling in the background. The brief reaction quickly became one of the most discussed moments from the game, particularly because of the long-running media tension surrounding Clark and Reese. Clark's reaction does not establish why she smiled. The video shows Clark smiling, but it does not establish that she was laughing at Reese. Sports Illustrated noted that it was impossible to know exactly what prompted Clark's expression. She could have been reacting to the dramatic turn of events, relieved that the Fever had avoided a regulation loss, or simply responding to what was happening around her. That distinction matters because the viral clip has been interpreted as another chapter in the Clark-Reese rivalry, even though neither player has publicly said that Clark's expression was directed at Reese. Indiana turns the miss into an overtime win. The Fever took advantage of the second chance. Indiana pulled away in overtime to win 95-91, extending its winning streak to 4 games. Clark finished with 26 points and 9 assists, while Reese posted 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists for Atlanta. Michaela Timpson also played a major role in the victory, scoring a career-high 20 points and making Indiana's first 3 field goals of overtime. The result was particularly important in the Eastern Conference playoff race. Indiana entered the game competing with Atlanta for a top 4 position, which carries home court advantage in the opening playoff round. Clark emphasized that importance after the victory. Coming into each night, we know how important that win is to hopefully get home court advantage in the playoffs, Clark said, according to TalkSport. Just proud of our group, super resilient. Obviously, this was a big one. Reese's miss overshadows a strong overall performance. While the late layup became the viral talking point, Reese was far from the only reason Atlanta remained in the game. She finished with double-double of 15 points and 14 rebounds, along with 6 assists, as the Dream pushed Indiana into overtime. The missed putback also needs to be viewed in the context of Reese's shooting night. Sports Illustrated reported that she missed her first 6 attempts and continued to struggle around the basket, an issue that has affected her efficiency during the 2026 season. SI cited Reese's 47.8% shooting rate from within 5 feet entering the game. Still, reducing the game to 1 missed layup would overlook how close Atlanta came to beating a Fever team that has been playing some of its best basketball of the season. Clark and Reese have been linked since their college careers, when their rivalry became one of the defining storylines in women's basketball. Their WNBA meetings continue to attract outsized attention, making even a few seconds of broadcast footage capable of becoming a major online talking point. Caitlin Clark explains game-winning play in Fever's 95-91 victory over Dream. Caitlin Clark closed out Sunday's win over the Atlanta Dream by throwing the ball to the opposite side of the court as time ran out. The Indiana Fever started their 5-game road trip on a high note after they beat the Dream 95-91 in front of their home fans at State Farm Arena. Clark spearheaded the 18-point comeback of the Fever behind her 26 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists to record their 23rd win of the season and 4th straight victory. During her on-court interview right after the final buzzer, Indiana's superstar guard addressed the last play of the game, where she chucked the ball to run out the clock. "Our main goal was just not to foul in that situation," Clark said. "Up 4, honestly, let them shoot if you're behind. Got the ball back, and I've had that in my bag for a while. Just chuck it down the court. Somebody's got to get it, or the clock is going to run out." Clark has been averaging a double-double of 25.8 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 10.0 assists during this 4-game win streak. Thanks to Clark's strong play, Indiana is now 23-12. They remain 4th in the standings and just 5.5 games behind the top-seeded Minnesota Lynx. The Fever are set to face the Toronto Tempo, the Dallas Wings, the New York Liberty, and the Chicago Sky in their next 4 road games as they try to extend their current streak. They are now headed to Toronto for Tuesday's game against the Tempo. Should be the frontrunner. Former Heisman winner claims Caitlin Clark deserves WNBA MVP award over Aya Wilson, Olivia Miles. Caitlin Clark delivered another clinical performance in Indiana's 95-91 OT win against the Atlanta Dream on Sunday. Clark shot 9 of 20 from the field for 26 points with 3 rebounds and 9 assists. The Fever superstar has been in the MVP conversation throughout the season, but according to former Heisman winner Robert Griffin III, Clark should get the MVP nod over Aya Wilson and Olivia Miles. Caitlin Clark should be the front-runner for WNBA MVP, he wrote on X. Nobody impacts the game more with scoring and assists. Caitlin Clark is third in PPG this season with 22, ranked behind Wilson and Kelsey Mitchell. She is leading the league in APG with 8.3 per game. She is currently on track to achieve this unprecedented milestone of finishing top 3 in PPG and first in assists. Clark's overall numbers are very impressive. More importantly, her performances are pushing the Indiana Fever closer to securing a playoff spot. The Fever are currently 4th in the league with a 23-12 record and a 4-game winning streak. The 2026 WNBA MVP race, however, is far from over. As per USA Today, Aya Wilson is still the frontrunner. She has already won the coveted trophy 4 times and could potentially add another one to her list. Other than Wilson, Olivia Miles is on a dream run, averaging 19.9 points, 6.1 assists, and 4.6 rebounds per game. It's almost certain that Miles will be the Rookie of the Year, and, according to USA Today, she is second in line for the MVP trophy. Candace Parker is the only player in WNBA history to win MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same season back in 2008. If Miles finishes the season on a high note, she could become only the second player to win both awards. Skip Bayless heaped praise on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has had 10 or more assists in 11 games this season, so it's not surprising that she's leading the league in APG. According to Skip Bayless, it's not just about the number of assists per game for Clark. It's also about how well she executes them. Caitlin Clark is by far the W's best passer, best ever in the W. Every game, 3 to 4 of her passes are so stunning teammates aren't ready, can't convert. Last night, egregious. Could have had 20 assists. CC also leads by far in turnovers. Passes can be high risk, intercepted, or dropped. Bayless wrote on X on Saturday, the media veteran has been a vocal supporter of the Fever superstar for years. And every time she makes a great pass, Bayless goes on X to hype her up. Caitlin Clark shared how Fever escaped with victory over Dream. Caitlin Clark, number 22 of the Indiana Fever, looks on against the Atlanta Dream during the third quarter at State Farm Arena on August 16, 2026 in Atlanta, Georgia. Note TO user. User expressly acknowledges and agrees that by downloading and or using this photograph, user is consenting to the terms and conditions of the Getty Images license agreement. It was far from an easy game, as the Indiana Fever had to fight and claw their way to an impressive 95-91 overtime win over the Atlanta Dream. Entering the fourth quarter, the Fever were down by 8 points, but Caitlin Clark was able to help her team fight back into the game. It took clutch shots and strong defense in the fourth quarter and overtime to take down the Dream in a slugfest. Clark finished the game with 26 points, 9 assists, and 3 rebounds in a win. It took a total team effort, but how did the Fever fight through the tough times to win the match? Caitlin Clark talks about how the Fever defeated the Dream. After the game, Clark spoke with the media, and one question asked how they were able to get the win. It wasn't any basketball fundamentals that helped them win on the road. Yeah, I think we're just really resilient, Clark said. I think we were down 8 going into the fourth, and, we kind of just put our head down and kept plugging away and plugging away. And I felt like we played like a B- game. Like, it wasn't our best. Clark was credited for playing great defense on Dream guard Alicia Gray late in the game after tying a career-high 32 points. The Fever also got some great performances from Michaela Timpson, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell to help them late in the game. In 31 games played, Clark's scoring average increased to 22 points per game. She is also averaging 8.3 assists and 3.9 rebounds per contest. Indiana Fever got massive win thanks to Caitlin Clark's performance. The The Fever are very close to clinching a playoff spot thanks to Clark's performance. They currently sit at 23-12 and lead the Dream by 1.5 games for the 4th seed in the WNBA playoffs. Although it has been a tough stretch, the Fever have won 4 straight contests. They have beaten the New York Liberty, Dallas Wings, and Dream in that span. Things will not get easier for Clark and company. They return to action on Tuesday against the Toronto Tempo. They close out the week against the Wings on Thursday, the Liberty on Saturday, and the Chicago Sky on Sunday. If the Fever want to go into the World Cup break with momentum, they have to keep winning. Clark will have to play a key role in making that happen. Caitlin Clark sends strong warning about Angel Reese. Dream after Fever victory. Caitlin Clark helped the Indiana Fever earn an important road victory Sunday, but she left Atlanta with even more respect for Angel Reese and the Dream. Indiana opened its 5-game road trip with a 95-91 win at State Farm Arena, securing a split of the 4-game regular season series between the two teams. Clark led the way with 26 points and 9 assists as the Fever survived another close battle with one of the WNBA's most talented teams. Afterward, Clark made it clear that the Fever may not have seen the last of Atlanta this season. "This is a team that will be scary in the playoffs," Clark said. "They're great at what they do. They have a lot of different weapons." It was a significant compliment from the Fever star following the game that once again showed how little separates the two teams. Caitlin Clark praises Atlanta's star power. Clark stopped short of putting a special label on the Fever Dream rivalry, instead pointing to the level of competition throughout the WNBA. However, she acknowledged that Indiana's 4 games against Atlanta this season consistently brought out the best in both teams. "I think, obviously, they're a very talented team," Clark said. "I feel like every matchup we've had this year has been really close, and it's been a battle." Clark specifically highlighted Atlanta guards Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray, calling them 2 of the best players at their position in the league. Howard's size and length present an especially difficult matchup for opposing backcourts. Reese also made her presence felt Sunday. The Dream 4 recorded 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists, although Clark improved to 6-2 against her longtime rival in their head-to-head WNBA matchups. The focus after the game was less about the 2 individual stars and more about what Indiana proved against a potential postseason opponent. Fever respond to another difficult test. Clark believes games against contenders, such as Atlanta, can reveal exactly where the Fever stand as the playoffs approach. "These are the games you get up for," Clark said. "That's what's fun about competition. You want to play the best. It brings out the best in you. And I thought we stepped up to the challenge, and we're really good tonight." Indiana needed one of Clark's best performances to finish the job. Her 26 points powered the offense, while her 9 assists allowed the Fever to keep finding answers whenever the Dream threatened to take control. The victory gave Indiana momentum at the beginning of a demanding road trip and ended the regular season series at 2-2. Any 5th meeting would have to come in the postseason. That possibility suddenly looks much more intriguing. Clark expected Atlanta to be dangerous if the Dream reached the playoffs. Sunday's result showed the Dream should feel the same way about the Fever. Caitlin Clark's stunning 24-foot step-back 3 over Angel Reese highlights rivalry. The Indiana Fever kicked off their road trip with an overtime win against the Atlanta Dream at State Farm Arena. Another chapter was added to the Caitlin Clark-Angel Reese rivalry as the stars face each other on Sunday. Reese dominated the boards with 14 rebounds to go along with 15 points and 6 assists. Ryan Howard added 17 points and 5 assists. Alicia Gray led the way for the home squad with 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Michaela Timpson had a solid game for Indiana, scoring 20 points. The Fever Big Three, on the other hand, combined for 64 points. Aaliyah Boston had a dominant game with 18 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 steals, and 3 blocks. Kelsey Mitchell chipped in 20 points, while Clark led the way with 26 points and 9 assists. The 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year busted out her signature step-back 3-point shot again on Sunday night. This time around, it was Reese who was on the wrong end of Clark's latest highlight reel. Clark ran through a double screen as she brought the ball down the floor. Reese switched to her after the second screen, and the 6-foot sharpshooter fully capitalized on the matchup, Clark pulled off a crossover move before stepping back, and then drilling the shot from 24 feet. This was her first three-pointer in the game, extending the Fever's lead to 8 with 5:35 remaining in the first quarter. With this win, the Fever improved to 23-12 this season. Their next game will be against the Toronto Tempo at Scotiabank Arena on Tuesday. Indiana's next home game will be on August 28th against the Connecticut Sun. Caitlin Clark praises scary Atlanta Dream after Fever edge rivals in tight 95-91 road win Fever's road when highlights intense rivalry with Atlanta Dream. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark opened up about the intensity of her team's rivalry with the Atlanta Dream after the Fever narrowly escaped State Farm Arena with a 95-91 victory Sunday, the latest chapter in a season-long series that has consistently come down to the wire. The win kicked off Indiana's 5-game road trip and marked another closely contested battle between two of the WNBA's more high-profile rivals. Clark orchestrated the Fever's offense throughout the game, finishing with 26 points and 9 assists. The victory also improved Clark's personal head-to-head record against Atlanta star Angel Reese to 6-2 across their matchups in the league. Reese, for her part, produced a strong individual performance despite the loss, finishing with a double-double of 15 points and 14 rebounds to go along with 6 assists. Asked in her post-game interview about the nature of the rivalry between the two teams, Clark emphasized that Atlanta represents one of several strong competitors across the league, while acknowledging consistently tight margins that have defined the Fever Dream series this season. I think there's great competition across the league, Clark said. I think, obviously, they're a very talented team. I feel like every matchup we've had this year has been really close, and it's been a battle. Clark, the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, singled out two of Atlanta's guards for particular praise, crediting both their individual talent and the structure Atlanta's coaching staff has built around them. They're well coached, Clark continued. They do a lot of great things, obviously. Ryan and Gray, they're two of the best guards in the league. And obviously, with Ryan's size, it poses a lot of problems with just her length. She pointed to that combination of talent and physical tools as a factor that could make Atlanta a difficult opponent later in the season. So this is a team that will be scary in the playoffs. They're great at what they do. They have a lot of different weapons. Beyond her assessment of Atlanta specifically, Clark also reflected on what games of this caliber mean for her own team's development, describing high-intensity matchups against strong opponents as valuable measuring points for the Fever as they continue building toward the postseason. But I think for us, these are the games you get up for, she said. That's what's fun about competition. You want to play the best. It brings out the best in you. And I thought we stepped up to the challenge, and we're really good tonight. Sunday's result evened the season series between the two teams at 2-2, marking their final scheduled regular season meeting of the year, barring a potential postseason matchup between the two clubs if both advance far enough in the playoffs. The head-to-head series has served as one of the more closely watched storylines of the WNBA season, with both squads featuring high-profile young stars who have helped drive increased national attention and viewership to the league. Clark and the Fever will continue their road trip Tuesday, when they travel to Toronto to face the Tempo at Scotiabank Arena, continuing a stretch of games that will test the team's depth and consistency away from Indianapolis. Sunday's victory adds another data point to what has become one of the WNBA's most closely followed individual and team rivalries in recent seasons, with both Clark and Reese having emerged as two of the league's most prominent young stars following standout collegiate careers that preceded their arrival in the professional ranks. Their matchups have consistently drawn significant television and streaming audiences, contributing to broader ratings growth the league has experienced since both players entered the league. The Fever's ability to close out a tightly contested road game against a divisional or conference rival is likely to be viewed as a positive sign for the team as it continues navigating a demanding late-season schedule. Close victories against strong opponents, particularly on the road, are often cited by coaches and analysts as evidence of a team's readiness for the increased pressure of playoff basketball, a point Clark herself alluded to in describing the value such matchups hold for her team's preparation. Atlanta, meanwhile, will look to build on Reese's strong individual performance as the team continues its own push through the remainder of the regular season, with Clark's comments suggesting that opposing players and coaching staffs around the league continue to view the Dream as a legitimate threat heading into the postseason, regardless of Sunday's outcome. As both teams continue their respective schedules in the weeks ahead, the Fever Dream series is likely to remain a focal point for league observers, particularly given the possibility that the two teams could meet again in the playoffs, depending on how the remainder of the regular season unfolds across the broader WNBA standings. For now, Sunday's result stands as a testament to the tightly matched nature of the rivalry, with neither team having established a decisive edge over the other across their 4 meetings this season. INL Anthem drama. Caitlin Clark mocking Angel Reese, and poor officiating wraps up controversial WNBA game. The Indiana Fever's Sunday trip to State Farm Arena to take on the Atlanta Dream left an impression on WNBA fans with the on-court action and more. From a technical standpoint, the game showed how a team could lose in overtime after nearly dominating the contest for 3 quarters. The matchup also highlighted just how dramatic a competition can become when internal and external factors come into play. The title already highlights the most prominent ones, but let's take a deeper look at the factors that became newsworthy on a day when Caitlin Clark set multiple records on the court. The debate around XX/XY shirts. Right before the game started at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, XXXY Athletics founder Jennifer Say shared several photos of fans wearing her brand shirts on social media. Fans also showed up with placards and banners supporting Sophie Cunningham's stance on protecting women's sports. However, after the game, John Root shared a clip on social media detailing an unexpected incident that allegedly took place during the game. The podcast host claimed on X that a local Georgia mother and daughter were discriminated against at the game for wearing XXXY Athletic shirts. It's important to note that there was no issue with their attire when they entered the arena or for a large chunk of the game. However, during overtime, a security guard allegedly told them they had to put Atlanta Dream shirts provided by the arena over their own shirts, or they would be escorted out. Later, after the game, the mother and daughter spoke on camera about their experience. "We were made to cover up our XXXY shirts at this game. They gave us T-shirts during overtime and told us we had to leave or cover our shirts up," said the mother. The duo even shared who informed the authorities about the T-shirt and why. The incident upset many people, including Say, who shared the story on social media. She even claimed that she would attend the Liberty Fever game in New York and suggested that everyone wear that specific T-shirt. Root also complained about the gaps in the arrangements for fans at the stadium. Allegedly, a large line had formed outside the arena before the game, with little organization in place to manage the crowd. The debate around a national anthem. There was some drama around the Dream's absence on the court for the national anthem. John Root posted on X that the Atlanta Dream did not come onto the court for the national anthem before the game against the Indiana Fever. The Fever, meanwhile, remained on the court for the anthem. However, this was not the first time Atlanta had opted not to take the court while the Star-Spangled Banner was sung. Since 2020, staying in the locker room or tunnel during the anthem has been a pre-game choice for several WNBA franchises, including the Atlanta Dream. The decision has repeatedly drawn criticism. On Sunday, the Dream's gesture toward Stacey Abrams also came under scrutiny. The scenes between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The question is, did Caitlin Clark laugh at Angel Reese after the regulation buzzer beater miss? Clips and captions circulating on social media claim that she did. But what actually happened? At the end of regulation, with the game tied, Reese had a chance to win it for Atlanta at the rim. Her first attempt bounced off the rim and fell back into her hands. She then attempted to make a basket under pressure from Aaliyah Boston, but her layup missed. Cameras caught Clark smiling as time expired, sending the game into overtime. That led to a perception that Clark was mocking Reese. It isn't entirely unfounded, as Clark had a smile plastered on her face, while Reese had a grimace. It could be seen as a smug expression at Reese's miss, as Clark knew her team had scraped their way to overtime after being outplayed through quarters 2 and 3. However, there's enough scope in the video to say that Clark's smile was not even directed at Reese. The Fever guard isn't seen staring at the Dream forward in the video. It's just a split-second glance to a place over Reese's shoulder. Given where Clark was at the time Reese attempted to win the game, she was seemingly walking under the hoop back to her bench, or just looking at her own teammates. Also, The smile could very well have been a slight celebration among teammates due to the fact that the Fever managed to force overtime after being 8 down at the start of the fourth. However, that was not the only notable moment between the two stars. With about 4:10 remaining in the first quarter, Clark and Reese were battling in the paint as the Atlanta star positioned herself for a potential rebound. As Clark resisted her position, Reese appeared to make contact with Clark and shove her away. Did the referee call a foul? No. We'll get to the officiating in the next point. But the incident was enough to show the intensity of the competition between the two stars in the middle of the court. The officiating lapses during the game. The referee did not call a foul after Reese made contact with Clark and appeared to shove her away. However, Brian Alt, the prominent face of Midwest scouting, viewed the play differently and called a flagrant foul on Clark. Criticizing the official's decision, he wrote on X, "The fact that it wasn't called by the official is more maddening than the foul itself." That wasn't the only instance in which the officiating came under scrutiny. During the game, Clark also made contact with Alicia Gray and appeared to get hit in the face, but no foul was called. Instead, Clark was called for a foul on Ryan Howard, who was attempting a three-pointer with about 10 seconds remaining in overtime. Clark immediately asked the Indiana bench to request a review. However, even after the officials reviewed the play following a challenge from Fever head coach Stephanie White, the foul stood. Experienced analyst Skip Bayless, however, sided with Clark and criticized the official's decision. The Fever ultimately won 95-91 in overtime, but the officiating controversy overshadowed the result and may have taken away the focus from Clark's heroics on the floor. Clark set more WNBA history in the game. With her basket at 1:35 of the third quarter, Clark moved past Tammy Sutton-Brown's 1,658 points for 8th place on the franchise's all-time scoring list. She scored 6 more after that, with 4 points coming via free throws, to bring her career total to 1,666 points. Clark also recorded the 23rd 25-point, 5-assist game of her career, moving into 5th place in WNBA history and breaking her tie with Kelsey Plum, who has 22 such games. Additionally, it marked Clark's 12th 25-point, 5-assist performance of the season, extending her league record for the most such games in a single WNBA season. After the game, Fever head coach Stephanie White commented on what makes Clark such an elite playmaker. "I feel like C. Clark. Over the last 4 or 5 games, her floor game has been incredible. We all know she can score in bunches. She finds ways. The way that she's getting us into offense, the way that she's using the floor to get her teammates shots. She's not getting bogged down trying to create something," said White. "She's allowing the game to flow, and she's doing a great job finding her teammates. When she does that, it opens things for her. At the timeout, I don't think she expected to be that open. That was a result of all the ways she was getting everybody else involved throughout the course of the game. Yet, despite all the records and milestones, fans may not soon forget everything that unfolded throughout this dramatic game.